Hello and welcome to MTM Live, or Marketing the Magic Live. This is our very first live broadcast as a follow-up discussion to our regular weekly pre-recorded show. And this week we'll be talking about the importance of storytelling in marketing. But right now we're kind of in just a few more minutes of sort of a pre-show time period where we're kind of letting people get in and get settled and kind of limber their fingers up. We'll usually have a question of the week that we ask. But just kind of giving a few minutes before we actually get started right at 1 o'clock Central. So speaking of the question of the week, our question for this week is, what is your favorite Disney marketing campaign? So think back over any of the campaigns you might remember from Disney's history. These could really be anything. It could be the castle that they decorated, or the cake that they decorated the castle as, or it could be campaigns on television, like the I'm Too Excited to Sleep campaign, things like that. But our very favorite, and while I'm answering this, I'm going to make sure that we're actually looking like we're supposed to, and I believe we are. That's good. So my favorite campaign of all time, or of all Disney time in any case, is the What's Next campaign. As I mentioned in the post on the Facebook page this week. That is the campaign where Disney or film crew will go up after a big sporting event to the MVP usually of the game and say, well, now that you've won the Super Bowl, what's next? And they say, I'm going to Disney World. That campaign has actually been running for 30 years now. And it was originally inspired by Jane Eisner, the wife of Michael Eisner, who was the CEO at the time. And she suggested it to him over dinner one night, and 2 or 3 weeks later, they had the first campaign on the air. So it was very quick turnaround and a very long-lived, very effective campaign. So let us know in the comments, if you are here with us, what your favorite Disney marketing campaign is for our question of the week. I'm going to do one more quick check here, make sure I'm not missing any comments or issues that are coming up. And we will get started in just a moment. Okay. I think we are in good shape. See, we have a couple of viewers there on YouTube and a couple on Facebook. Welcome. Thank you for watching today. I hope you'll join us for the long term. We'll be doing this each and every week, or at least every week of our seasons, which we'll get to in just a second. And it is officially 1 o'clock, so let's get started. Now, welcome again to all those just joining us to MTM Live. This is our weekly live stream discussion on Facebook and YouTube, in which we follow up and just continue discussing the lesson taught by each week's regular episode of the Marketing the Magic show. Those are pre-recorded episodes, and then that I try to keep within about 5 to 10 minutes. And then we take a little more time to really dive in and digest and figure out the practicalities of that lesson a couple days later in MTM Live, our live stream discussion. Now, this week's episode, our very first live stream, so before I get to anything, please bear with me. I am a bit nervous. I've been on camera before, but it's always been a little bit lower stakes. So I'm having fun with this. It's not going to be perfect. We're not going to have all the graphics and things included just yet, but we're here. We're going to talk about some Disney magic and some marketing magic and have some fun along the way. So, as I was saying, this week's episode, our very first, was on the importance of storytelling in marketing. And this is a really, truly foundational topic for me. This is kind of the core of everything that inspired and drove the creation of this project and drives my approach to marketing for my own businesses and for my clients as a marketing agency. Storytelling in marketing in particular is kind of a buzzword these days. Everybody says it. But one of the problems that I ran into as I was looking at how to implement storytelling in my marketing was that there wasn't a lot of concrete practical instruction. What does it actually mean to incorporate storytelling in marketing, and why is it so important? We'll get to all that in just a minute. Before we do, I want to take just a minute to talk about how this show is going to work, just to kind of give you a heads up so you understand what we're kind of doing, and so you know what we're looking for feedback on. As I mentioned, each week we'll have a pre-recorded lesson in a series of 12 episodes per season. So that gives us a little bit of, we'll get through a season, we'll power through it, and then we'll take a little bit of time to kind of evaluate, make sure we're incorporating the feedback that you guys are giving us and using it to improve the show. So each week we'll have one of these episodes in a short 5 to 10 minute, really compact video lesson that we pre-record, and we can do all the fancy graphics and things like that to introduce a lesson that we can take from the marketing campaigns and the theme parks and attractions, the marketing and promotional professionals at Disney throughout its history. We'll take a lesson that we can really learn and introduce it during that episode. And then a couple days later, on Wednesdays for now, in our live stream discussion, we'll take a little bit more time. We're usually going to be aiming for about 20 to 25 minutes for these live streams. We'll take a little bit more time during the live stream to really break it down and talk about how to implement it practically. And we want to use that time to talk to you, to get your questions and your feedback on the lesson and your success stories, your other lessons learned, or your other ideas. So that's kind of the format, 5 to 10 minute episode on Mondays, 20 to 25 minute live stream discussion on Wednesdays. So we want to know what you think of it, though. Is this practical for you? Is it useful to you? Would you prefer one big live stream or one big episode? Or let us know. We really want to know so we can deliver the most effective information and format to you. Now, let's get into this week's actual episode, or actual topic of content, and that is, again, the importance of storytelling in marketing. Now, it is pretty clearly undisputed that Disney is sort of the king of the mountain when it comes to storytelling. And I think one of the big reasons that my wife actually pointed out to me, hi Sabria, is one of the reasons that it is so successful is that their stories are never simple. They're never straightforward, straight to the point, hero walks up and bonks the dragon on the head and the story's over. That's not really how Disney stories work. There's always more context. There's always more complexity to keep us engaged and to really suck us into this world that Disney has created for us on camera. So again, that's I think what distinguishes Disney among all the competitors out there. They tell these very rich, complex stories. And that's how we need to look at our marketing, and we'll get back to that in just a moment. In the episode this week, I talked for a few minutes about Pirates of the Caribbean. It's my very favorite theme park attraction and franchise in general, really, especially when it comes to marketing and business and the way that they've created a business around that franchise. Pirates, by the way, is celebrating 50 years this month since the original attraction opened, so congratulations, Disney, on 50 years of Pirates of the Caribbean magic. And Pirates, the reason I talked about it this week and the reason I'll be talking about it a great deal more in the future is because Pirates of the Caribbean is this incredibly complex world and story that Disney has built for us to enjoy. The marketing that Disney has done around the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, the marketing and promotions and advertising, all those things combined is a story unto itself, and we will be exploring that in many lessons in the future. But I wanted to highlight it in terms of the importance of storytelling to marketing because it is such an amazing example of a rich, complex, multifaceted story from the attractions that led to the books, that led to the movies, that led to attraction revamps, that led to more movies, that led to a completely new attraction experience at Shanghai Disneyland in China. It has a life unto itself. And that complexity, that type of narrative, that way of looking at marketing is how we should look at our marketing. So, what do we actually mean by storytelling in marketing, though? Well, it's pretty obvious to think of something like a series of blog posts or video marketing as a means to tell stories through your marketing. And those are very effective. It's very easy to conceptualize that. It's not quite as easy to really conceptualize of how we'll tell a story or establish a narrative if we're talking about tweets or Facebook posts or a very short video, things like that. It's hard to cram a full narrative into a very small marketing creative like that. It's possible. You can certainly do it. And we'll definitely be exploring ways to do that over time. But what's most important to me, or what was most important to me for my marketing agency, was to look at storytelling in marketing, or establishing a narrative in marketing at the strategic level. And again, we're going to spend the rest of this episode pretty much diving into that. But before we get to that, there's a very specific topic I want to address before we really dive in, and that is originality in marketing. Everybody feels, I think, at least I know I do, that we have to come up with something unique, that we have to tell a story that no one's ever told. We have to produce these Google ads or blog posts or Facebook posts or tweets that are completely unique and original and inspirations in original storytelling unto themselves. And that is, plain and simple, not true. Look at Disney. I mean, straight up, point blank, look at Disney. Disney has never worried that much about originality, okay? At least in terms of the stories it's told, especially through the original Walt Disney Animation divisions. Just look at from the very beginning through today, from Snow White through Tangled and Frozen, Pinocchio, Peter Pan, all of these stories, none of these stories did Disney come up with entirely on its own. Of course, they had their own spin and their own direction to take with these stories, but they didn't create them. These were all stories long before Disney got a hold of them and turned them into the brilliant and wonderful animated movies that we know and love. So, in terms of originality, don't worry about it so much. I mean, if you have the inspiration, if you are inspired to create something very original, by all means, pursue it if it makes sense. But especially as you're beginning to figure out your marketing, or your strategy for your company or for a new client, turn to what already works. Look at the market around you. Look at your competitors or your clients' competitors. Look at what people are doing in other industries that aren't at all related to what your business does. Figure out what works, what commercials or advertisements or pay-per-click ads or blog posts really pull you in. Study those things and use them in your marketing. Use what works and throw out what doesn't. But don't be so worried about always having to come up with something completely unique in your marketing. It's not necessary. Disney is a fantastic example of that. Now, let's talk about what I really mean by this idea of storytelling in your marketing strategy. Now, whether we're talking about an inbound marketing strategy, or you strictly focus on social media, or you use direct mail advertisements, or whatever you use, this idea can apply and make your marketing more effective. Where I really began was in looking at my strategy in terms of the components of a story. So how we build a story, how we piece together the characters and the plot and things like that, really began to inform how I can look at my marketing in a more effective way. And by doing so, it led me to be able to implement more narrative-driven individual marketing campaigns down the road. But we're focusing on the strategy level for today. So what do I actually mean by this? Think of the components of a story. You have the protagonists, which is in the kind of story we're talking about, which is a hero story. You have the hero and the person or people or group or object or whatever it is that the hero is supposed to be saving. Those are your protagonists. You have villains. You have something that stands in the way of the hero, something that is threatening the other protagonists and the hero himself. Then you have the story arc that begins to really connect the heroes and the damsels in distress to the villains and to the problem that the villains are presenting and to how the hero is going to solve those problems. That's your story arc. And then, of course, usually in hero stories, it all ends in a happily ever after and at the end. And unfortunately, we hopefully, at least, won't ever see at the end in our marketing, but we can get to that happily ever after. So let's start mapping those elements of a story, of a hero story, to a marketing strategy. Now, it should be pretty obvious that your company, or your client's company, if you are a marketing professional, is the hero of the story. that company is the one that's out there with the solution to save humanity or to make your drive to work easier or whatever your product or service actually is. You are the hero. That company is the hero. Your customers, or your clients' customers, are the other protagonist. They are the damsels in distress, or the world at large that needs to be saved from this dastardly villain. Now, what is the villain, though? We're getting a little more abstract, so stay with me. The villain in the story is the problem that the customer faces. Okay? So we can draw some pretty obvious examples here. A problem will either be a pain that somebody's trying to get rid of or a pleasure that they're trying to obtain. So think of the villain for somebody who's been in a car accident. Then it wasn't their fault. A drunk driver hit them. Sad story. That's a villain. That's the problem, and it's a pain that they're trying to get rid of. A personal injury attorney, then, is the hero who can solve that problem for that customer. In terms of pleasure, Disney is the best example we can possibly think of. Disney is in the business of providing pleasure. They solve the problem that their customers have of wanting to enjoy more time with their families and have fun riding attractions, eating good food, and whatever else it is that people do at Disney and love and so forth. But those are pleasures that Disney's trying to address rather than a pain that they're trying to get rid of. So that's the villain of the story. You have your company as the hero, your customer as the person or people or business that needs to be saved, and the problem that your customer is dealing with that your company can solve. Now, the story arc is how all those elements connect. Okay? The plot is what drives your company from having a product to sell to communicating that you have that product to sell and why your product is the best one to buy to your consumers, to your decision makers, or to your customers. And then actually solving that problem is, of course, how the story arc ends. Now, in terms of marketing, the story arc is how we plan the individual campaigns, the path that we're going to follow to get from I need customers to I have an exceptionally profitable marketing campaign that's giving me more revenue than I know what to do with. At least that would be the ideal. So it's what's going to lead us there, and then that's the happily ever after is finding that success and how we find that success. Okay, so in the happily ever after phase, we're analyzing everything that we've done. We're figuring out which marketing campaigns, which strategies, which channels, which approaches work the best. We're testing and analyzing and optimizing so that we get the very best result. And of course, the key in marketing is we don't want the end. Unless you're working for an exit, you're trying to sell your company off, you never want the end in your marketing story. There's always going to be a sequel or a side story or some other aspect of your story to tell, some other marketing angle to test, because you will always need more customers. Because if you're not gaining customers, you're dying. Now, hi Sabria, I see that you heard me mention you. What having this story-driven marketing strategy can do for you is amazing. It establishes a context for you and everyone who's involved at your company or your client's company or on your marketing team. It establishes this context to live within, to create your marketing within, the individual campaigns that will be a part of your story arc. It takes things from, we need to be online and we need more revenue to, okay, this is who we are, this is who our customer is, this is the problem that we're solving, this is the story we want to tell to let our customer know that we can solve their problem, and this is how we're going to get there. That's a much better plan. That's a much better approach to marketing, especially in a competitive world, than, I think we're on Facebook. So that's the beginning of the power that a story-driven marketing strategy can afford you. But what it also does, and this is kind of a smaller topic, something else we can really explore, is it makes you much more agile. When everyone is aware of the story and how different elements fit within it, you'll be able to approach the emerging opportunities that come in marketing seemingly every single day, whether it's a new channel that is perfectly aligned to your customers, or it's some item in the news that you can capitalize on by offering a discount for your services to your local market, whatever it is, there will always be emerging opportunities in marketing. And by having this narrative, this story around your strategy that everyone on your team is aware of, you can more rapidly and effectively take on those emerging opportunities. Now, those emerging opportunities usually have more risk than a more measured, standard approach. And so you really want to have this narrative established, and you want to have a team that works well together within that narrative before you really go out and try to pursue those emerging opportunities. But when the timing is right, when the team is right, you can have some major success with these emerging opportunities that require an agile team. Frozen from Disney is one of the best examples of this. Frozen has been in the works, or had been in the works, for years and years and years. It had been greenlit and then put on the back burner and then forgotten about, and then the right people got back in and brought it back up, and the green light was given. But they only had 2 years from start to finish to create and animate and edit and polish the movie Frozen. That's extremely fast for an animated movie of that scale. Much faster than most of the Disney animated movies in history have ever taken. And in fact, the team behind Frozen was kind of plagued right up until the very last minute, the last couple of months before the debut was scheduled, with story problems that they were still having to resolve and finish, including in the movie. But they got it done, and of course, I mean, if we're a Disney fan, or even if not, if you're a parent, or if you have eyes and ears and have had them for a few years now, you know that Frozen was exceptionally profitable, exceptionally well received. It has transformed Disney in many ways. But the only reason that the team at Disney was able to get that movie out in such a short time frame, and even while plagued by all the problems that they had with it, is because they had an effective team. Everyone there knew the narrative. They understood the story of Disney, how Disney creates movies, how Disney presents those movies to the public, and then of course they understood, as it was being resolved, the story of Frozen itself. So, when you have this kind of framework in place, this story-driven framework in place, you can create some truly remarkable marketing for your business or for your clients' businesses. Now, I believe we are about out of time for this week. That went a lot faster than I thought it was going to, and it usually does. I'm also impressed that I actually got through my outline today. I usually am extremely long-winded, and I also talk very quickly. So I never know if I'm going to come in 50% too short on time or 50% too long on time. So I'm actually fairly pleased with myself this week. We got through it. Luria, you're absolutely right. It does go quick, and thank goodness for that. This has been a fun show. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to take a quick look here and see if anybody else has any comments or questions for us. It does not look like it, but we are always around. We're going to be back Monday morning with a new episode on part 1 of Mickey's 10 Commandments for Marketing. And then we'll have, of course, another live stream next Wednesday to discuss those commandments. In the meantime, if you have any thoughts or questions, please let us know. You can comment here on Facebook, on YouTube. The podcast version of the show is out on Stitcher and Google Play. It'll be out on iTunes next week as well. So you'll be able to find us pretty much wherever you want to, including, of course, marketingthemagic.com, which right now is actually under construction. So I have a kind of temporary page up while I revamp everything there and have my team finishing that up. But in any case, like I said, I hope you've enjoyed the show today and this week. Let us know your feedback and any questions and comments you might have, and we look forward to seeing you again real soon. Thanks.